the Whiskey 61 Lounge inside the Bank Plus studio.
You are listening to
Mississippi's #1 sports talk show, The Out of Bounds Show with Bo Bounds. Streaming worldwide live on the Out of Bounds radio app and on your radio at ESPN 105.9. The Zone.
Good morning. Welcome in on a Monday. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for making us your sports and entertainment show of choice in the great state of Mississippi. Out of Bounds, 105.9 The Zone. Brought to you by the New York Strip at Kessler Prime and the Renaissance. Visit KesslerPrime.com to make a reservation. We welcome in Hail State insider Steve Robertson. The Boneyard Podcast, GenesPage.com, part of the 247 Network. And Steve joins us on the Shiner Bach guest line. Steve, let's start with Mississippi State baseball. They are 6-3 on the weekend, the last 3 weekends. Without that, without their aces, so to speak, delivering really good performances. So McLeod's had one. Bednar has yet to start a game. He threw 1 inning Friday, and Sarantola's pitched 2 weekends and hasn't looked good. Where do you think this is headed? Because of, these are prestigious. You've got to have really, really, really strong frontline pitching to have a shot at doing what you want, hosting a regional, and so on. What do you think happens the next 4 to 5 days heading into this weekend as far as the 1, 2, and 3 starter? Steve?
Well, that's a great question. Well, I think one thing we can probably agree on is that Jackson Fristow probably remains on Sunday, and then you've kind of figured out from there. And Christian McLeod's a guy that was absolutely dominant last year. He had 4 starts, and he was almost unhittable at times and never really seemed to be stressed. And this year it's been much different with him. There are just some things about him that are different. He has difficulty making it through the order the second time, and that's been a surprise. And so, I think Sarantola's the guy that's had control issues his entire career. And it's one thing to do it in an inter-squad scrimmage. It's another thing to do it when, there's 4,000 or 5,000 people out there and they put the score in the paper. It's a different day. And I think that for some reason he kind of struggles with that aspect of it. But, yeah, you're right. Chris Simonis and Scott Box will have some difficult decisions to make. I don't know if they're as difficult as they would be in normal years because you're so stacked from a pitching standpoint. I could absolutely see them making some decisions to maybe trot Brandon Smith back out there and maybe move Houston Harding to the weekend, then have Fristow go on Sundays. I think after what we saw yesterday, the way Lamonis shook up the defensive alignment and the batting order, that he's not scared to do any of this to ensure the Bulldogs get a win.
Steve Robertson on the Out of Bounds show. With Bednar throwing on Friday night for an inning, and he looked good, do you expect him to get the baseball next Saturday?
Well, you got 5 games this week. So you have a Tuesday game, a Wednesday, and then the 3 against Eastern Michigan on the weekend. I feel confident he's going to start somewhere. Maybe they're not ready to push him to the weekend. Maybe he gets a midweek start this week, and then he goes, down to Baton Rouge and pitches against them. Just not sure at this point where he is. But, you're right. He looked great in the 1 inning that he had, and that's what State needs is to get him going because that removes one of 2 questions on the weekend. I think if you feel good about Fristow and then Bednar can take a Friday or Saturday spot, then you kind of figure it out. But, I think if he's healthy, and it looks like he is, then he definitely needs to get some innings this week, whether it's being midweek, then you kind of push it ahead.
It looked like, look, Lamonis understands, obviously, the situation and that they got to get this thing figured out. They've got LSU and Arkansas coming up. It didn't look like he minced words on Friday when he made the walk to the mound to get McLeod.
Well, and that's Chris. Even when you talk to him in press conference settings or even private settings, Chris is a guy that just kind of tells you how the cow eats the cabbage. He's not one of these guys that's looking for a sound bite or to sound good or to go viral with some silly video. Chris just kind of tells you how it is, good, bad, or indifferent. And so, in many respects, too, I think Christian probably needs a little bit of that, too. McLeod's a guy that has draft aspirations, and a lot of people expect him to be a second or third round pick, and he hasn't pitched up to that expectation at this point. And so, I think it's important for him to kind of understand, listen, this is not acceptable. You know, you're a guy that's supposed to be a Friday night guy, a bona fide Friday night guy. That means you're going to win probably 75, 80% of the time, and you're not giving us a competitive effort the second time through the order. And that, what's so amazing is you look at some of the pitches he executes, the first time through, and he's got that biting fastball, and he's got an incredible breaking ball, and then something happens with him, and maybe it's a mental game with him where he's trying to do a little too much and to ensure that, he's kind of staying high on draft boards. But, I talked about this on my show. That's one of those things about the 2016 team that won the SEC championship for Mississippi State. Dakota Hudson, I believe, had a dozen innings under his belt before his junior year. And Austin Sexton was basically a spot reliever. And both of those guys were like, give me the baseball and I'll go win 10 games for you. And then both of them get drafted. And it's like, to me, those are the guys that you want on your team, whether you be a pro prospect or you be a college prospect or whatever. You want guys that want the baseball. And I look at guys like Brandon Smith, and Landon Sims, and Houston Harding, and Jackson Fristow. They want the baseball. And so that's what Chris Lemonis and Scott Foxhall have got to figure out is who wants the baseball and why do they want the baseball? If they want the baseball to ensure that Mississippi State gets to Omaha and wins a national championship, then they deserve the baseball. If they want a baseball because they want to showcase themselves for MLB scouts first, they probably don't need the baseball here.
Steve Robertson on the Shinerbot guest line. What do you make of the left side of the infield between James Jordan and Forsythe now with the shakeup and so on?
Well, I think one of the things it does, it gives you some options. And, you need Cameron James back in the lineup. And I know that he is a natural shortstop, and I know that he has had a great fall. But, it's been, what's he got, 6 errors now? And really the one on Saturday kind of closed the door in the ball game. I mean, you're kind of scratching and clawing to get back, and you throw that one away, and all of a sudden it's, 9 runs home for Kent State. But, I've been told by a couple of players that Lane Forsythe is among the best defensive shortstops they've ever played with or against. And so the concern about him was just going to be, handling the bat, against college pitching. And what does he do? But he got on base the first 3 times that he came to the plate. And, I think it gives Chris some options. When you've got Forsythe out there that can spray it around a little bit, what he can do defensively, then you can move Cameron James to third. And listen, to be fair, Landon Jordan has been much better than I expected him to be as a defensive third baseman. He made some plays on Friday and Saturday that I just didn't think he was capable of playing. And so I think competition is good for everybody involved.
Sure.
Nobody can afford to be comfortable.
Steve Robertson on the Out of Bounds show, genespage.com, part of the 247 network. Steve, I've got about a minute and a half here. Let's transition to football real quick. The buzz on your board is Will Rogers and Nathaniel Watson are leading the way as far as workouts, leaders on the team. Tell us what you're hearing on Rogers first and Watson.
Yeah, well, the main thing I'm hearing on Will is this offseason, Will has really become more of the leader. Last year he was a new guy kind of feeling his way through, but he's got some credibility in the room now, so guys are kind of responding to him. And listen, Mississippi State needs Nathaniel Watson to make a jump. I know that he has been kind of a message board favorite, and he's a guy last year that basically learned all 3 linebacker spots because that's what State needed him to do. But, it's time for him to kind of realize his potential. There's always that one guy that message board people always like, I don't understand why he's not playing. Well, your coaches know why. And so it's time for him to kind of make a jump now and push for a starting spot.
20 seconds. Don't you think that he was by far and away the most talented linebacker by about game 7 last year?
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, he has a tremendous amount of physical ability. Now it's just time to put it all together, and I think Zach Arnett will get him there. But I'm eager to see what happens for sure.
Steve Robertson on the Out of Bounds show. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it. genespage.com, part of the 247 network. You're listening to the Out of Bounds show presented by the Ribeye with a side of scallops, Four Roses Bourbon Manhattan, Kessler Prime and the Renaissance, KesslerPrime.com to make a reservation. The show is also powered by Independent Roofing Systems. If you've got a commercial job, Independent Roofing Systems will take care of it. The #1 commercial roofing company in the state of Mississippi, roofing.ms.